Hey there, welcome. You found your way to a cozy corner of the internet where stories unfold slowly, gently, just enough to let your mind wander and drift. For the next hour, I'll be reading a collection of Reddit stories. Real, raw, sometimes funny, sometimes emotional, but always soothing. There's nothing you need to do right now, no decisions to make, no tasks to finish. Just settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let these stories carry you into sleep. Or at least a peaceful state of rest. So take a deep breath and let's begin. Am I the a-hole for exposing my best friend's secret at her wedding? This is going to be long, but I'm hoping someone can help me figure out if I did the right thing. It's one of those situations where I can't even tell if I'm the villain, and my guilt is eating me alive. I, 29F, have known Jessica, 30F, for over 10 years. We met in college, and we quickly became inseparable. I would have done anything for her, and I always thought she felt the same way. Our friendship had its ups and downs, but we always had each other's backs. She was the one who stood by me when I went through a messy breakup, and I was the one who helped her after a terrible experience with her family. Fast forward to now, Jessica was engaged to her fiancé, Daniel, 32M, and they were getting married in a few weeks. I was the maid of honor, and everything seemed perfect. The wedding was set to be this big, beautiful affair. Everything was planned down to the finest detail. Jessica had always dreamed of a fairy tale wedding, and she was on cloud 9. But, as is often the case, things weren't exactly as they seemed. About a month before the wedding, Jessica started acting strangely. She'd always been a bit of a perfectionist, but I noticed that she seemed increasingly stressed and distracted. She wasn't answering my calls as quickly. She was cancelling plans. And she kept talking about how complicated things were with Daniel. I didn't think much of it at first. Wedding stress, right? But the more time went on, the more I started noticing some things that didn't add up. One night I ran into her at a coffee shop while I was on a work break. She seemed on edge, and when I asked her how the wedding planning was going, she froze up. She barely responded and changed the subject. It was so unlike her. I pressed a little, but she just kept telling me everything was fine and that I shouldn't worry about it. However, I was starting to worry. The weirdest part was that she kept talking about how perfect Daniel was, how they were so meant to be, but there was an almost forced tone to it, like she was trying to convince herself. I began to wonder if maybe she was having second thoughts, but I didn't want to overstep and make assumptions. A week before the wedding, Jessica's behavior took another strange turn. She invited me over to her place to hang out, and when I arrived, she was a mess. She had been crying, and when I asked what was wrong, she broke down. She admitted that she had been seeing someone else, another guy from work, actually. She told me she had fallen for him, and she was so confused about what to do. Jessica said that she loved Daniel, but that the spark was gone between them. She said she didn't feel the same way anymore, and this other guy made her feel alive again. She asked for my advice, and I honestly didn't know what to say. I knew Jessica wasn't the type to cheat, and I knew how much she loved Daniel. But this was something else. She admitted that she'd been hiding it from him for weeks, and that she wasn't sure how to tell him. She also said that she was still planning to marry him, because she didn't want to ruin the wedding and didn't want to disappoint their families. At that moment, I felt conflicted. On one hand, I wanted to support my best friend, but on the other, I couldn't let her marry someone under false pretenses. It was clear that she wasn't being honest with herself, and more importantly, she wasn't being honest with Daniel. I told her she needed to be upfront with Daniel before going through with the wedding. I told her it wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to her, but she kept brushing it off, saying she didn't know how to do it. She was afraid of what it would mean for her life and for everyone else involved. She asked me to keep it a secret, and I reluctantly agreed. But to be honest, I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. The day of the wedding came, and I could see the tension in Jessica. She looked stunning, but there was something off about her. She was fidgeting, avoiding eye contact with me, and she seemed to be in a constant state of panic. I could tell she wasn't ready to get married, and I was starting to feel sick just being a part of the ceremony. During the vows, when Jessica was up there with Daniel, something inside me snapped. The guilt, the feeling of betrayal, all of it was too much. As she was about to say "I do," I stood up from my seat and shouted, "Jessica, stop, you can't do this." Everyone turned to look at me, including the bride and groom. The room went silent, and I was immediately filled with regret, but I couldn't back down. I walked up to the altar, and in front of everyone, I exposed her secret. I told Daniel everything, how Jessica had been seeing someone else, how she wasn't ready to marry him, and how she had been hiding it from him for weeks. The whole room was stunned. Jessica's face turned white, and she looked like she was about to faint. Daniel stood there frozen, his mouth open in shock. He didn't even know how to react. For a moment, no one said anything. Then Jessica started crying. She was a mess, apologizing to Daniel, begging him to understand. Daniel, however, was furious. He stormed out of the church, telling Jessica he couldn't believe she would do this to him, especially in front of everyone. It was a complete disaster. The fallout from that moment has been absolute chaos. Jessica is furious with me for ruining her wedding, and she says I humiliated her in front of her family and friends. She hasn't spoken to me since the incident. Daniel hasn't contacted me either, and I have no idea where he stands. My family and friends have all been divided. Some say I did the right thing, that she needed to be called out, but others think I crossed a line and could have let Jessica handle it privately. Some even say that it wasn't my place to do that at all. Now I can't help but wonder if I was in the wrong. Was it my place to expose her secret in front of everyone? Should I have just let her go through with the wedding and deal with the fallout later? I know I've ruined our friendship, but I can't help but feel like I did the right thing in the end. So, am I the a-hole for exposing my best friend's secret at her wedding? Am I the a-hole for exposing my best friend's darkest secret, even though I knew it would ruin her life? This story is hard to tell, but I feel like I have to get it out of my system. I've spent months trying to justify my actions, but deep down I feel like I've become someone I never thought I could be. I, 28F, have a best friend named Emma, 29F. We've been inseparable since high school. We shared everything, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. I always thought we knew everything about each other, that we were untouchable. Emma had a perfect life in so many ways. She was beautiful, popular, and had this air of confidence that seemed impossible to shake. Everyone loved her. I adored her too, but I could never shake the feeling that she was hiding something. There were always little things. She'd cancel plans last minute. Sometimes when I'd ask about her family, she'd change the subject or give vague answers, but nothing too suspicious at first. It wasn't until last year when I found out just how much of a lie her life had been. It happened on a weekend trip. We went to a cabin out in the woods to unwind, just the two of us. It was supposed to be fun, just like all the other trips we'd taken together. But during this one, something was off. She seemed distant, on edge. I chalked it up to stress at first. She'd been working crazy hours, and I figured she just needed some time to relax. On the second night, after a few too many drinks, I walked out onto the porch to get some air. I wasn't expecting anything unusual, but I caught her on the phone. She wasn't speaking to anyone I recognized. Her voice was shaky, almost pleading. I heard snippets of the conversation, and what I heard sent a chill down my spine. It sounded like she was talking to someone who wasn't happy with her, someone who was threatening her. She was apologizing for something, repeatedly saying, "I didn't mean it, I swear, I'll fix it, just please don't do it, don't tell anyone." I thought maybe I had misheard, but then she started crying, and that's when I realized that the perfect image of Emma was a complete lie. The next day, I confronted her. I tried to act casual at first, just to gauge her reaction. I asked if everything was okay, if she was dealing with something, and if she needed to talk. She got defensive immediately. "It's nothing," she said. "You're overthinking it." But I could tell it was more than that. I pushed her, and eventually she broke down. She confessed that she'd been in a relationship with someone from her past, a person who had a hold over her. This person wasn't just a random ex. They had a long history together, and there were things that had happened between them that Emma was ashamed of. The worst part? She told me that they'd been blackmailing her. She didn't go into too much detail, but she said that she'd made some terrible decisions when she was younger, decisions that she regretted deeply. She had been involved with this person in, ways that would ruin her reputation forever if anyone found out. She had been doing whatever they asked, all to keep her darkest secrets from coming to light. I couldn't believe it. Emma, the woman who had everything, was not just hiding a secret. She was trapped in it. But here's where it gets complicated. I knew the person she was talking about. This person was someone I'd seen around, someone who had a reputation for being dangerous. I had no idea Emma was involved with them, and I couldn't understand why she hadn't come to me sooner. Why hadn't she trusted me? I won't lie, I was furious. I didn't know who to be mad at, her or the person she was hiding from. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Emma's perfect life wasn't perfect at all. It was a carefully constructed lie to cover up something that could destroy her. I wasn't thinking clearly when I made my decision. I knew I should have been there for her, tried to help her fix the situation, but I didn't. Instead, I did something awful. I took it to social media. I didn't name names, but I shared a post, alluding to the fact that someone we both knew was involved in something dark, something that would destroy their life if it got out. I didn't think much of it at the time. I just wanted to see her face the consequences of her actions. I wanted her to be exposed, to come clean about what she had done, and stop pretending like everything was fine. I thought I was doing her a favor. The moment I hit post, I felt a rush of power. It felt like I was finally in control. But that feeling didn't last long. Within hours, I started getting messages. People who knew Emma had started asking her about it. They were concerned. Others were speculating about who I was talking about, and the worst part, she found out. She showed up at my house, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She didn't say a word at first. She just stood there staring at me. I've never felt more like a villain in my life than in that moment. I knew what I had done. I had exposed her, put her through public humiliation, and turned her life upside down because I couldn't stand her living this lie anymore. But the truth was, I couldn't live with the guilt of knowing that she was hiding something so dark, something that could ruin her life at any given moment. I thought I was helping her, but I had only hurt her. Emma ended our friendship that day. She said I had betrayed her in the worst way possible and that there was no coming back from it. She told me that I had taken something from her that she could never get back. Her trust. I haven't heard from her since. I tried reaching out to apologize, but she refused to speak to me. She cut me out of her life completely. And while part of me thinks I deserved it, part of me wonders if I was right to expose her at all. Did I do the right thing by exposing her secret, even if it ruined her life? Or am I just a selfish person who couldn't stand seeing someone live? In a perfect world while I was drowning in my own insecurities? Am I the a-hole for what I did? Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my house after she lied about my late husband's will? I, 32F, need advice. I'm honestly feeling lost and a bit like I've done something unforgivable, but at the same time, I don't know how else. I could have reacted. I'll give some context. My husband, Mark, 34M, passed away suddenly in a car accident about 8 months ago. We'd been married for 4 years, and honestly, I thought we had everything figured out. We didn't have kids yet, but we had a house, a life, plans for the future. Then, just like that, everything was gone. The worst part was that it came out of nowhere. Mark was healthy, active, and full of life. There were no warning signs. 1 minute he was leaving for work, and the next minute I was getting the call that he was gone. I don't even remember the first few weeks after. I just went on autopilot, handling everything that needed to be done while constantly feeling like I was drowning. Mark had always been the practical one. He was the type of person who had life insurance, had our finances organized, and even had a will that was clear and to the point. He'd told me a few times how he had made sure I would be taken care of if anything happened to him. I thought it would give me some comfort, knowing that I wouldn't have to worry about financial stability. But that's not how things went. Few weeks after Mark passed, I had to go through his things and figure out what needed to be done with the house, his possessions, and all that. I had to contact the lawyer to go over his will. That's when the first surprise hit me. His will stated that the house would stay in my name, his life insurance was to go directly to me, and all his personal belongings were mine. There were no big surprises. He had left some smaller things to his family, like his watch to his brother and his guitars to his cousin. But then, buried deep in the will, there was something that made my stomach drop. It said that if I remarried within 5 years, I would forfeit everything. I couldn't understand it at first. Why would he put that clause in there? We had discussed our future many times, and I knew he had always wanted me to be happy, even if that meant moving on after him. He had always said that he'd want me, to find someone else if I was lonely. So why would he put such a stipulation in his will? I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but I moved on with life, handling things one day at a time. That's when my sister, Amanda, 28F, stepped in. Amanda and I have always had a complicated relationship. We've had our differences, especially as we've gotten older. She's always been the type to speak her mind, sometimes without thinking about the consequences. But she's my sister, and I've always tried to have her back even when it wasn't easy. A couple of months after Mark passed, she started making comments about how I wasn't moving on fast enough. She said I was too focused on grieving and not enough on living. I didn't take it too seriously at first because, well, what else was I supposed to do? But as time went on, she started getting more persistent. She said I needed to get over it and start dating again. When I explained that I wasn't ready, she would tell me I was being selfish and that Mark wouldn't want me to waste my life away. But the real shock came when Amanda told me she had found something in Mark's will that I hadn't seen. She claimed that Mark had left everything to her if I remarried within a certain time frame, and that she had the legal right to take everything. She said that she had looked into it, and that the lawyer had made a mistake in not informing me of this part of the will. According to her, if I moved on too quickly, I would lose all of Mark's assets, and they would go to her. At first, I was so confused. This didn't make sense. Why would Mark do that? But Amanda was insistent, claiming she'd spoken to the lawyer directly. I called the lawyer myself, and he confirmed there was no such clause in the will. It was just the one about me not remarrying within 5 years to keep my inheritance. But Amanda kept pushing, telling me that the lawyer was lying, that I didn't understand what she was telling me. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. I confronted Amanda about the lies. She was furious, saying I was just jealous, that she would inherit everything if I remarried. I didn't believe her, but she kept telling me I was being unreasonable, accusing me of not trusting her. She started making comments about how I had no right to the house if I wasn't moving on, and it felt like she was trying to manipulate me into giving her everything that Mark had left for me. The next few days, she kept coming by the house, trying to convince me that she was right. She even started packing up some of Mark's things, saying she needed to help me move on. I was at my breaking point. I was already grieving my husband, and now my sister was trying to take everything from me. Finally, I snapped. I told Amanda she had to leave my house, that she had no right to take anything from me or claim things that didn't belong to her. She was shocked, and I'm not proud of the way I yelled at her, but it felt like she was crossing a line. I told her that if she couldn't respect Mark's wishes, she had no place in my life anymore. She left in a huff, but things only got worse from there. She started spreading rumors to the rest of the family, saying that I had kicked her out because I was selfish and holding on to the past. Now my family is divided. Some are on my side, while others think I overreacted and that I should have just let her help me. But here's where the plot twist comes in. A few days after Amanda left, I got an anonymous email. It was a scanned copy of the exact clause she had been talking about, the one that said I would lose everything if I remarried within a certain time frame. The lawyer had never mentioned it to me, because it was never in the will. Someone had fabricated the document, and I realized that Amanda had manipulated me into believing something that wasn't true. I was livid. She had been lying the whole time to try and get me to believe she was entitled to Mark's things. It wasn't about me moving on or getting over him. It was about her trying to take everything from me under false pretenses. I feel like I did the right thing by kicking her out, but part of me wonders if I went too far. I'm still angry, but I don't know if I should be the bigger person and try to mend things, or if I should just cut her out of my life for good. So, am I the a-hole for kicking my sister out of my house after she lied about my late husband's will? Am I the a-hole for ruining my best friend's engagement after I found out she was cheating with my husband? I've been sitting with this for a while, trying to figure out if what I did was completely unforgivable. It's one of those things that seems so messed up, but at the time I thought I was doing the right thing. Now I don't know. I, 30F, have a best friend, Sarah, 29F. We've been friends since high school. We've been through everything together, breakups, family issues, job troubles, everything. I considered her my sister. She was the person I went to when I needed to talk about anything. And she always had my back. She was the person I thought would always have my back. But I guess I was wrong. I'm married to Mark, 33M, and we've been together for almost 7 years. We've had our ups and downs, but for the most part, I thought we were good. We have a solid relationship, or at least I thought we did. We've been through some tough times, but we've always worked through it. I always trusted Mark more than anyone, really. And then came the day that changed everything. It started when Sarah got engaged to her longtime boyfriend, Matt. The engagement was a huge deal. Sarah had been planning this for months, and it was supposed to be this big, beautiful celebration. Everyone was so excited, including me. I was supposed to be her maid of honor. I had this big role to play in her life, and I was ready to be there for her, to help her through every part of this milestone. But around the time of the engagement party, I started noticing weird things. Sarah was acting distant. I'd call her and she'd either not answer or take hours to reply. She started canceling plans, something that was completely unlike her. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured she was just busy with wedding planning, and I tried to let it slide. One evening I decided to stop by her place to surprise her. We hadn't hung out in a while, and I thought it would be nice to spend some time together. When I showed up, though, I found something that I never expected. I knocked on the door, and when she opened it, I saw something I couldn't ignore. Mark was standing right behind her. At first I was confused. What was he doing there? They seemed a bit too comfortable, too cozy for a simple visit. I wasn't sure what I was seeing, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I stepped inside, trying to act casual, and greeted them both. But the tension in the air was thick. I noticed that Mark's face went pale when he saw me, and Sarah looked like a deer in headlights. It didn't make sense. I tried to brush it off, but something in my gut told me that something wasn't right. My suspicion grew as the evening went on, and I could tell that they were hiding something from me. I decided to leave shortly after. When I got home, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had happened between them. My mind wouldn't stop racing. Had they been seeing each other behind my back? It didn't make sense. Mark and I had never had serious issues, and Sarah had always been my closest friend. But the more I thought about it, the more the pieces started to fall into place. I couldn't sleep that night. I spent hours scrolling through my phone, looking at old texts and photos, trying to find any clue that would tell me what was going on. That's when I found something, a text thread between Mark and Sarah. It wasn't just 1 or 2 messages, it was months of secret conversations, and as I scrolled, my heart dropped. They had been seeing each other for months. The messages were full of sweet nothings, inside jokes and intimate talk. But there was something even more damning. Sarah had confided in Mark about her doubts about her engagement to Matt, telling him that she was in love with him and not Matt. I was gutted. I felt sick to my stomach, like everything I had built, my life on, had just crumbled. The person I trusted most in the world, my husband, had been sneaking around with my best friend behind my back for months. I couldn't breathe. I was furious. How could they do this to me? How could they betray me in the worst way possible? I spent the whole night pacing around the house, trying to figure out what to do. I was angry, devastated, and honestly, I felt like I had lost everything. I didn't know if I wanted to confront them immediately or take some time to think things through, but ultimately, I knew I couldn't keep this secret. The next day, I called Sarah and told her to meet me. I needed to talk to her. When she arrived, I confronted her. I didn't hold back. I told her I knew about everything, about the affair with Mark, about her feelings for him. She tried to deny it at first, but when I showed her the texts, she broke down. She admitted everything. She said she didn't mean for it to happen, that she never wanted to hurt me, but that she couldn't help how she felt. She said she had fallen for Mark, and that their relationship had started as something innocent, But it had spiraled into something more, but none of that mattered to me. The fact that she had betrayed me, that she had been hiding this from me for so long, hurt more than anything. I told her I couldn't do this anymore, that I needed space and that our friendship was over. But it didn't stop there. I didn't know what to do about Mark. I knew if I confronted him, he would deny everything, like he always did. So I did, something that I'm still questioning today. I went straight to Matt, Sarah's fiancé, and told him everything. I told him about the affair, about how Sarah had been sneaking around with Mark, and how she had confessed that she was in love. With him, Matt was devastated. He didn't believe me at first, but when I showed him the evidence, he collapsed. He said he never expected this from Sarah, that she had been his whole world. He immediately called off the engagement, and I watched as their perfect future came crashing down. The fallout from all of this has been a nightmare. Mark and I are no longer together. He moved out and we haven't spoken since. Sarah has cut me off entirely, and I don't blame her. I know what I did was cruel, but I couldn't live with the lie any longer. I had to tell Matt the truth, even if it meant ruining Sarah's life and our friendship. Now I'm sitting here alone, trying to make sense of everything. Did I do the right thing? I feel like I've lost everything. My best friend, my husband, my sense of self. But at the same time, I feel like I had no other choice. So am I the a-hole for ruining my best friend's engagement after I found out she was cheating with my husband? Am I the a-hole for exposing my brother's secret and ruining his relationship because of something I witnessed in our childhood? I've been sitting on this for a while, and I know it's probably one of the worst things I've ever done. But at the same time, I don't know if I regret it as much as I should. Let me explain. I own a 27F, have an older brother, Daniel, 31M. Growing up, we had what I would call a complicated relationship. We were close at first, but that quickly changed when I was about 10 and he was 14. I don't know if it was puberty or some kind of pressure from outside forces, but Daniel started becoming more and more of a jerk. I know siblings argue and fight, but Daniel's behavior went beyond that. He was cruel, and sometimes it seemed like he took pleasure in it. He would pick on me for the smallest things. The way I talked, the way I dressed, how I looked in photos. If I ever got attention from anyone, even our parents, he would make fun of me or try to put me down. And it wasn't just teasing. He'd go out of his way to humiliate me in front of other people, making me feel small, like I didn't matter. I used to be really sensitive, so at first, it hurt. But as time went on, I started developing a thicker skin. I figured he was just dealing with his own insecurities, and the best way to cope was to ignore him. That was how I survived those years, but I never forgot. There was one thing, though, that I couldn't shake from my mind, something that happened when I was 12. One afternoon, when I was home alone, I walked into Daniel's room to ask him for something. I wasn't expecting him to be there, but when I walked in, he was. And not only was he in the middle of a private moment, but I saw something I wish I could forget. He was looking at photos of our family, specifically old pictures of me, and the look on his face was unsettling. It wasn't just typical sibling curiosity. It was like he was seeing me in a way I hadn't ever seen myself. At that moment, I wasn't just his annoying little sister. He was looking at me in a way that felt far too intense. I didn't know what to do. I quickly backed out of the room and pretended I hadn't seen anything. I didn't even tell anyone about it. It felt wrong, and I couldn't wrap my head around what I had witnessed. Over the years, the images of him staring at those photos lingered in the back of my mind. But I buried it. I figured it was just a weird phase he went through, and maybe I misinterpreted the situation. Fast forward to a few years ago. Daniel met the love of his life, Jessica. I'll admit, when he first introduced her to the family, I was skeptical. She was everything he seemed to want. Beautiful, confident, and successful. But something about her rubbed me the wrong way. She was always too perfect, too polished. And the way she seemed to look at Daniel, there was something in her eyes that made me uneasy. But everyone else adored her, and I didn't want to be the person to ruin their happiness. So I kept quiet. Then, a few months ago, I noticed something strange. Daniel had been distant with me. He wasn't the same as before. At first I thought it was just him being busy with work or his relationship, but over time I started catching little things that made me suspicious. His interactions with Jessica became more secretive. He'd act overly protective around her, and there were times when I noticed he'd get really uncomfortable when she wasn't around. I caught them fighting once, but it was hushed up so quickly that I almost thought I imagined it. One night after a family dinner, I was walking home when I saw Daniel and Jessica standing in the park. It wasn't unusual. They often went for walks after family events, but this time something was off. I overheard their conversation, and it stopped me dead in my tracks. Daniel was telling Jessica that he had a deep fear of losing her. But then, in a hushed voice, he said something that made my blood run cold. He said, "I can't help it, I just feel like I'm still obsessed with her. Sometimes I feel like I'll never stop thinking about her." I knew exactly who he meant. He was talking about me. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment I thought I misheard him, but then he kept going, admitting how he couldn't get rid of the feelings he'd had for me all those years ago. He talked about how difficult it was to just be normal around me now that he was in a relationship with Jessica, but he couldn't stop fantasizing about me. I was stunned. I didn't know what to do. I stood there for what felt like hours, trying to process what I had just heard. How could he say something like that? After everything, after years of him making me feel worthless, after everything that happened between us, he was still obsessed with me. It made me sick. The images from that afternoon years ago suddenly flooded my mind. The look on his face when he was staring at those photos of me wasn't just a fleeting thought. It was the truth of how he saw me. And now, he was in a relationship with someone else, and he was still carrying this obsession with me. I couldn't let him get away with it. I knew it was wrong, but I felt like I had to expose him. I had to let Jessica know what was really going on. She deserved the truth, and I couldn't let this lie continue to grow. So I did what I thought was the right thing. I told Jessica everything. I told her about the moment I saw him looking at those photos of me, how I had overheard him talking about his feelings for me. I described everything I had witnessed, the way it had haunted me for years. Jessica was shocked. I don't think she believed me at first, but when I shared more details, the truth started to sink in. The look on her face when she finally realized the gravity of the situation was one I'll never forget. She ended things with Daniel that night. He begged her to stay, but she wouldn't listen. It's been a few months since everything happened. Daniel and Jessica are no longer together, and things between us are completely broken. He hasn't spoken to me since, and I can't help but feel like I've ruined everything. I feel guilty, but at the same time I feel like I had no choice. He had to face the consequences of his actions. But now, looking back, I'm wondering if I went too far. I don't know if exposing him was the right thing to do, even though I felt trapped by everything I knew. So, am I the a-hole for exposing my brother's secret and ruining his relationship because of something I witnessed as a child? Was I justified, or did I cross a line? Am I the a-hole for manipulating my sister into revealing her deepest secret just to prove she wasn't perfect, even though it ruined her life? I never thought I'd be here, but after months of feeling like I made the right choice, I'm starting to question my own morality. I'm torn between thinking I did what was best for both of us and feeling like a complete monster for what I did to my sister. I, 29F, have an older sister, Kate, 31F, who's always been the golden child in our family. Growing up, it was obvious that she was the better sibling. She was smart, beautiful, always had her life together, and was everyone's favorite. Our parents always talked about her like she could do no wrong. "Kate's going to be the one to change the world," my mum would say. "She's got such a bright future ahead of her," my dad would add. I was always in her shadow, trying to carve out my own identity while constantly feeling like I was second best. But here's the thing. Despite her perfect outward persona, Kate was always hiding something. She had flaws, huge ones, and I knew about them. For years, I'd been the only one who saw through her perfect little facade. She wasn't perfect, and the truth was I had evidence that proved it. It started when I was 18 and Kate had already gone off to college. I was still living at home and would find things around the house that didn't add up. The first time it happened, I found an unopened letter in our mailbox. It was addressed to Kate and it was from a clinic. Out of curiosity, I opened it. It was a medical bill for something she hadn't told anyone about. It mentioned a psychiatric evaluation and some kind of therapy. At first, I thought it was a mistake or some kind of error, but when I dug a little deeper, I found other things. Another letter a few months later from the same clinic. Kate had been in therapy for some time, and I had no idea why. At first, I didn't say anything. I didn't even confront her. I didn't think it was my place. But as time passed, I started noticing other things. She'd leave her phone unattended when she came home, and I'd catch glimpses of her texts that were way darker than anything I'd ever imagined. There were messages from friends and family that hinted at her mental health struggles, including mentions of self-harm, anxiety, and something about a relationship she had been hiding. That's when I realized the truth. Kate wasn't perfect. She was struggling in ways no one knew about, and she was keeping it a secret from everyone. But here's where it gets complicated. I knew Kate was hiding this huge part of her life, and I also knew that she was living this lie. I was angry that everyone thought she was this perfect, untouchable person, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized that this information could completely destroy her perfect image. People would see her for who she really was, and the best part was I had all the evidence. So I did what anyone with a chip on their shoulder would do. I manipulated her into revealing her secret. It didn't happen overnight. I started with subtle comments, hinting that I knew something was off, that I wasn't blind to her perfect little life. I played it cool, pretending to be supportive, acting like I was just concerned. I told her that I had my own struggles, too, and that I understood what it was like to hide things from people. I wanted her to feel safe enough to open up to me, even if it meant pushing her to the edge. Finally, after months of this psychological game, I pushed too hard. I confronted her one night. I told her that I knew about the therapy, about the bills, about the messages, about everything. I told her that I understood and that she didn't have to be perfect all the time. I was expecting her to break down, to finally let the facade slip and admit everything. But instead, she went silent. She stared at me, frozen, her face pale. Then she did something I didn't expect. She confessed. She told me everything. The self-harm, the therapy, the abusive relationship she'd been in. She told me that she felt like a fraud, that she didn't want anyone to know the truth because she thought it would destroy everything. She told me that she'd been carrying this weight on her own for years, pretending everything was fine, pretending to be the perfect daughter, the perfect sister, the perfect friend. But that wasn't the end of it. After the confession, something inside me snapped. I had won. I had gotten her to admit everything, to show her cracks in front of me. I thought it would feel empowering, like I had finally taken control of the situation. But instead, I just felt empty. Instead of comforting her, instead of telling her it was okay and that we could get through it together, I did something worse. I took it further. I started using her confession as leverage. I made her feel guilty for not telling me sooner, for keeping everything from me. I started pointing out her flaws, emphasizing how she had been hiding behind this perfect image for so long. And every time I did, I saw her crumble more and more. She would apologize, cry, and beg me not to tell anyone. I wanted to make her feel small. I wanted to break down that perfect image she'd built up over the years. Eventually, Kate's life spiraled out of control. She stopped going to therapy, lost touch with her friends, and started withdrawing from the family. Our parents noticed the change, and they grew concerned. But instead of being the supportive sister she needed, I distanced myself, letting her isolate herself even further. I kept telling myself that I was justified, that I was finally proving a point. She wasn't perfect, and now everyone would know it. But I knew deep down that I had crossed a line. I had manipulated her emotions, used her vulnerability against her, and made her feel like her deepest, darkest secrets were nothing but ammunition for my own satisfaction. I ruined her life just to make her feel as flawed and imperfect as I always felt in her shadow. Now, after seeing the damage I've caused, I'm questioning everything. I made her feel small, made her break, all to prove a point. But was I justified? Or was I just a petty, cruel sister who couldn't handle living in someone else's perfect world? Am I the a-hole for what I did to Kate? Or did I have the right to make her see that she wasn't untouchable, even if it destroyed her in the process. Am I the a-hole for manipulating my ex to get revenge for what he did to me, or was I just getting back what I deserved? This is hard to admit, but I'm at a crossroads. I'm not sure if I'm justified in my actions, or if I'm just as bad as the person who hurt me. I need some perspective because I've been questioning everything for months now. I, 30F, was with my ex, Mark, 32M, for almost 5 years. We started dating in college, and at first everything was great. We were in love, happy, and life was just easy. Or at least that's what I thought. I should have known from the start that Mark had a darker side, but I was blind to it. He was the kind of guy who knew exactly what to say, who made you feel like you were the only person in the world. He would tell me that I was his soulmate, that we were meant to be together. He'd shower me with gifts, take me on spontaneous trips, and be incredibly romantic. Everyone loved him. Friends, family, colleagues, they all adored him. He had this magnetic charm that made you believe everything he said. But behind closed doors, things started to change. I didn't notice it at first. He'd get irritated when I wanted to spend time with friends or family. He'd accuse me of not giving him enough attention. He started making little comments about my appearance, about how I could try harder to look nice for him. At first, I thought I was just being sensitive, but the cracks were there. Mark's jealousy grew and his temper flared up more often. He'd tell me that I was too independent, too free-spirited, and that I needed to settle down. I was still in school at the time, trying to build my career and enjoy my life, but Mark wanted me to focus only on him. If I spent a night out with friends, I'd get a barrage of texts accusing me of cheating or worse, being too much of a party girl. As the years went on, things started getting darker. He became increasingly controlling. He would make me feel guilty for things I didn't even do. Why did you wear that dress? It's too short. You're dressing like you're single. Or I don't like it when you talk to other guys. Don't you think I'm enough for you? He'd delete my social media posts without asking and block certain people on my Facebook or Instagram, saying they were bad influences. But it wasn't just verbal manipulation. Over time, he started isolating me from everyone who wasn't him. My friends slowly stopped reaching out because he was always tagging along and making them uncomfortable. He would make little jokes at my expense in front of others, testing the limits of my self-esteem, then turn it around by apologizing and saying, "You know I'm just joking, right? You're too sensitive." The worst part? He'd gaslight me. He'd deny things he said, twist my words, and even tell me I was crazy for thinking things weren't right. I stayed with him, though. I convinced myself that I loved him, that maybe I was overreacting, that maybe, just maybe, if I was a little bit better, he wouldn't be like this. Things came to a breaking point when I found out that Mark had cheated on me. It wasn't one of those he was drunk and made a mistake situations. No, it was planned. He had been seeing someone else for months, texting her while we were together, setting up secret dates. The girl reached out to me and showed me everything. The texts, the pictures, the receipts of their secret meetings. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I confronted Mark and he didn't deny it. He admitted it. But what happened next is something I'll never forget. Instead of being sorry, instead of apologizing and begging me to forgive him, he looked at me and said, "You really think anyone else would want you? You're lucky I even spent this much time with you. You're nothing without me." It was like a switch flipped inside me. I could feel this icy calm come over me. The person I had been for the past 5 years, the loving, patient girlfriend, disappeared in that moment. I knew then that I had to get out, but I also knew I couldn't let him win. I couldn't just walk away without making him understand the kind of person he really was. He needed to feel the pain, the betrayal, the isolation that he had inflicted on me all these years. I did something I'm ashamed to admit, but I can't take it back now. I started manipulating him, and I did it so well that I almost didn't recognize myself. I told him I wasn't going to leave him, not yet. I said I needed time to process everything, that I couldn't just walk away without closure. I played the role of the hurt but forgiving girlfriend. And for the next 2 months I fed him just enough hope to keep him on the hook. I acted like I might take him back, like I might forgive him, all the while knowing I was done. but I wasn't going to let him off that easy. I knew Mark wanted to keep his image intact. He was obsessed with appearances, how he looked to the outside world. So I started planting ideas in his head, making him feel paranoid. I'd send him messages about how weird things seemed when I was around, how his friends might be talking behind his back, or how people were whispering about him. I'd leave small clues for him to find, like screenshots of conversations I never had, or fake accounts that I created just to make him believe others were talking about him. The paranoia took root, and I could see the cracks in his calm, controlled exterior start to show. But I wasn't done yet. I set him up. I texted him from a fake account, pretending to be a woman who was interested in him and thought he was amazing. I got him to meet her. I made sure he thought it was a real opportunity to cheat again, feeding his ego with compliments and pretending to be someone he could have an affair with. I never intended for it to go beyond that. I just wanted him to experience the same heartbreak he put me through. Mark fell for it. He went to meet her, and when he showed up at the cafe, he found out I had set him up. I was sitting there, staring at him, watching his face turn pale as the realization hit him. I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at him, letting him stew in his own guilt, in his own fear. Then I told him everything. I told him how I had manipulated him, how I had made him paranoid and set him up to feel the same way he made me feel for years. And you know what he said? He said, "I can't believe you did that to me. You're crazy. You're as bad as I am." I didn't respond. I walked away, and we haven't spoken since. Now, months later, I can't help but feel conflicted. I got my revenge. But at what cost? I manipulated him. I made him feel exactly what I felt, but does that make me as bad as him? Or was I justified in doing whatever it took to show him the damage he caused? Am I the a-hole for what I did to Mark? Or was it just a necessary lesson in karma? Am I the a-hole for manipulating my best friend into leaving her abusive boyfriend just to prove a point? I don't know if I'm a monster, or if I'm just finally doing the right thing after years of watching someone I care about fall into a toxic relationship. I've been questioning my own morality since this all went down, and now I'm hoping Reddit can give me some clarity. I, 28M, have a best friend, Emily, 27F, who I've known since we were both in high school. We've been through everything together, breakups, moves, jobs, you name it. We're each other's ride or die. I'd do anything for her, and I always thought she'd do the same for me. But there's this one thing. Emily has been with a guy named Tyler, 29M, for almost 4 years now, and I've hated him for the majority of their relationship. He's manipulative, controlling, and an all-around asshole. But the thing is, Emily refuses to see it. She's constantly defending him, constantly making excuses for his behavior. It's like she's blind to it. Or worse, it's like she's okay with it. When Emily first started dating Tyler, I thought it was just a phase. He was charming at first, as most abusers are, and I figured he'd show his true colors eventually. But as time went on, he kept showing his true colors, and Emily just kept brushing it off. She'd tell me things like, "He didn't mean it," or "He's just stressed out," or "He's had a hard childhood." I was losing patience. I watched her get slowly dragged down, and I felt like I was the only one who could see it. It started with small things. Tyler would criticize Emily's clothes, tell her she wasn't good enough for him, or make fun of her in front of friends. But he was subtle about it, and Emily always made excuses for him. Over time, it escalated. He started controlling where she went, who she talked to, and even what she ate. If she wanted to hang out with me or other friends, he'd make her feel guilty for leaving him alone. She'd come to me crying, telling me that Tyler was just worried about her and that he loved her too much. But I knew it was more than that. It was manipulation, it was control, it was abuse. The tipping point came a year ago, when Emily and I had a heart-to-heart about her relationship. She was sitting in my living room, eyes red from crying, saying that Tyler had been going through her phone again. He accused her of cheating. She wasn't, of course, but she was terrified of his anger. She told me he had been getting more violent lately, throwing things around the house when he got mad. Told her flat out that she needed to leave him, that she deserved better. I told her that she didn't need to put up with that kind of treatment, that no one deserved to be afraid in their own relationship. I told her I would always be there for her, no matter what. But she just looked at me, and for the first time she said, But I love him. I don't want to leave him. He needs me. I was crushed. She couldn't see it. She couldn't see that love wasn't supposed to feel like that. That love wasn't supposed to make you feel trapped, isolated, or worthless. She couldn't see that Tyler wasn't just stressed or angry. He was controlling her, breaking her down piece by piece. And I couldn't stand by and watch it happen any longer. So I did something drastic. Something manipulative. I made a plan. It started small. I started sending her texts, harmless ones at first. I'd send her articles about emotional abuse, about toxic relationships. I'd ask her if she had ever heard of gaslighting and if she knew what it was. I'd casually bring up how happy I was in my own relationship and how much I valued the trust and respect between me and my girlfriend. I made sure to subtly plant the idea that Tyler was the problem, not her. I didn't think it would work. But then she started talking about it. She started questioning things. She said she didn't know if Tyler was as good as she thought he was. I pushed it further. I started asking her about specific instances where Tyler had been controlling or cruel to her. I didn't outright accuse him of anything, just asked her if she ever felt uncomfortable or unsafe. Slowly she started admitting it. She started telling me things she'd never told anyone, how Tyler would call her names when he was mad, how he'd isolate her from her friends and family, how he would accuse her of cheating without reason. I never directly pushed her to leave him, but I kept asking questions that made her doubt him more and more. And then I did the unthinkable. I reached out to Tyler. I texted him pretending to be someone else, someone who had met Emily at a party months ago. I sent him a message saying I had seen her with another guy and that they were flirting heavily. I told him I had pictures of her acting inappropriate. I had no pictures, but I knew it would get under his skin. I wanted him to lash out. I wanted him to show his true colors to Emily one last time, and that's exactly what happened. Tyler went ballistic. He called her a slut, he threatened to expose her, and he went so far as to break her phone and delete all of her contacts. He even broke into her social media accounts to message her friends, accusing her of cheating. It was a nightmare. But the best part? Emily saw it. She saw him unravel. She saw how he treated her when he thought he was losing control. She saw the abuse for what it was. She left him. It wasn't easy. It took her a while to fully break free, but she did it. She moved into my place for a while, and we spent hours talking about everything, about how much she had been through and how she had been too afraid to admit it. I was there for her, every step of the way. But deep down, I knew that what I had done wasn't right. I had manipulated her, pushed her to the brink, and used her pain to prove a point. So now I'm stuck here wondering if I'm the a-hole. I did what I thought was right. I got her out of an abusive relationship, but I used deceit, manipulation, and emotional coercion to do it. I played on her fears, her insecurities, and her love for Tyler to get her to wake up. And I'm not sure if that makes me a hero or a villain. Am I the a-hole for what I did to Emily? Or was I justified in doing whatever it took to get her out of that relationship? Am I the a-hole for taking revenge on my best friend after he ruined my life with a lie? I never thought I'd be writing this, but here we are. I, 30, have always considered myself a calm, reasonable person. I don't blow up at people. I don't escalate conflicts. I've been told I'm the kind of guy who listens first and asks questions later, who weighs the facts before reacting. But what happened to me over the last 6 months has changed me, and I can't tell if I'm justified or if I've just become someone I don't recognize. Let me start at the beginning. I've known Lucas, 30, since high school. We've been best friends for years. He was the guy who had my back when my parents divorced, who stood next to me at my wedding, and who I thought I could trust with anything. I've always been the kind of person who believed that friendships were sacred, that your best friend was the one person who would never betray you, no matter what. And for a long time, I thought Lucas was that person. The story starts when I met Claire, 29F. She was perfect in every way, smart, funny, gorgeous, and everything I'd ever dreamed of in a partner. We met through work. She was a colleague at the company I'd been at for 2 years. We hit it off immediately, and it didn't take long before we started dating seriously. Lucas met her a few months in, and I could see how much he liked her too. I'm talking about the kind of look that makes you realize he was more than just a little interested. But I didn't think much of it. I trusted Lucas. I didn't think he'd ever do something to hurt me, especially when it came to the woman I loved. We got engaged after about a year of dating. It felt like everything was going the way it should. Our families loved each other. Our friends supported the relationship. There were no red flags, or so I thought. It all fell apart the night. Before our wedding, Claire came to me in tears that evening, saying there was something she needed to tell me. I thought she was just nervous. I thought it was cold feet. She sat me down and told me she'd been seeing someone else, someone who was apparently closer to me than I thought. At first I thought she was joking, or maybe having a breakdown. But then she told me the name. It was Lucas. I remember the way my body froze, the blood draining from my face. My mouth went dry. I asked her to explain, and she did, telling me that it had started when I was busy with work, and Lucas was there for her, that it wasn't anything she planned, that she never meant for it to go this far. But it had. They'd been seeing each other for the past 6 months, the entire time we'd been planning our wedding. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how to react. The one person I thought I could trust more than anyone in the world had betrayed me. I asked Claire how long it had been going on, and she said they'd been physical 3 times. The first time was a month after I proposed. I was in shock. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to feel. I don't know how long we sat there just staring at each other. Finally, I asked her if she loved him. She said, "I don't know anymore, but I don't love you the way I thought I did." I called off the wedding. I told my family and friends what had happened, and most of them were as shocked as I was. Some took Claire's side, saying I'd pushed her away, but the majority of people sided with me, expressing disbelief over what Lucas had done. The part that really got to me was how Lucas reacted when I confronted him. He didn't apologize. He didn't try to explain himself. He didn't show any remorse. He just said, "Look, man, I never meant for it to happen. You weren't giving her the attention she needed. I didn't want to hurt you, but it just happened." That was it. No tears. No begging for forgiveness. Just an empty, hollow confession, as if what he did didn't matter at all. I didn't speak to him for weeks. I stayed with my parents, trying to process everything. Claire and I had some back-and-forth conversations, and she begged me to take her back. She said she was sorry, that it was a mistake, that she wasn't sure what she was thinking, but that she wanted to fix things. At first, I wanted to. I loved her, and I couldn't believe she would do something like this to me. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't look at her the same way. The trust was shattered beyond repair. But the worst part? Lucas. We didn't speak for months after the wedding was called off, and when we finally did talk, it wasn't because he reached out. It was because one of our mutual friends told me Lucas was planning to marry Claire. He'd moved on like it was nothing, like I wasn't even a part of the picture anymore. They were planning a quick wedding. I don't know why, but something inside me snapped. I wasn't going to let him get away with it. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't just let this slide, so I did something I'm not proud of. I started digging. I started looking into Lucas's life. I reached out to some of his old friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years, people who knew him before he was the perfect best friend. And what I uncovered, well, it blew everything wide open. It turns out that Lucas had been using me. He'd been intentionally sabotaging every relationship I'd ever had. With Claire, it wasn't an accident. He had a pattern. There was a history of him undermining my other relationships, dating women I'd liked, and then somehow reconnecting with them at the worst times. And it wasn't just about the women. Lucas had been slowly chipping away at my career too, throwing me under the bus at work, making sure I took the blame for things I had no control over. It was all so calculated, so methodical. The worst part? He had done all this to win me back in his own twisted way. He didn't want Claire for himself. He wanted to take her from me because he knew it would destroy me. So I did what I had to do. I told Claire everything. I laid out the evidence, texts, screenshots, and the things he had said to me when I confronted him. I even showed her how he had done the same thing to other people in his past. In the end, Claire left him. She was devastated, but she realized that Lucas wasn't the person she thought he was either. He wasn't just a cheater, He was a manipulator. I don't regret what I did. I think Lucas deserved everything that happened. But I've been wondering, Fi the hay-hole for going this far, for exposing him for everything he's done. I could have just let it go, right? I could have walked away and kept it all to myself, but I couldn't. So Reddit, am I the a-hole?